Today is World Hunger Day, the 28th of May, and we are here in Stellenbosch for a very special event. My name is Stephen Devereaux from the Centre of Excellence in Food Security at the University of the Western Cape, and also from the Union Against Hunger. And we, together with Women on Farms Project, are co-hosting a roundtable discussion which is asking the question, what can be done about ending hunger in South Africa? This year, the South African Human Rights Commission has launched an inquiry into the food system and the right to food in South Africa. So we have invited several NGOs, civil society organizations, to come and talk to us about what their submission was, because they all submitted to the inquiry and they presented testimony at the inquiry. We want to hear what they said. What is the issue as they see it, and what should be done to end hunger in South Africa?
My name is Yandi Somazwana. I'm from Fishhook in the community of Masiphumelele under the organization Masiphumelele Creative Hub. I'm the founder and the operations director there. Today I will be moderating the panel here and all the dialogues that we are going to have today. The Human Rights Commission is holding an inquiry from this country that is unable to feed its own people in a fair and equal way. And it's not delivering the right food to everyone. That is why you are here today. And I would like to really appreciate people who are able to create this kind of circles for us to discuss. All the organizations that are here today and that are represented by the panelists here have submitted most of their grievances to the Human Rights Commission. So we're going to take this opportunity and invite all of our people that are here with me on the table and to explain what is the argument that was made and what evidence and the demands that they want to give to the government to eradicate the hunger that we are just talking about in this country.
I'm so excited to be here today and to be a part of such an important event. My name is Paula Nijp. I've been working in the food policy space for about 8 years, and in January this year, I joined Animal Law Reform South Africa as the lawyer for their food systems reform and farmed animal program. I'm also a doctoral researcher at the University of the Western Cape, where my research focuses on feminist food system transformation, developing a rights-based, care-centered food governance framework to address all forms of malnutrition. And I also serve on the steering committee of the Union Against Hunger and the South African Non-Communicable Diseases Alliance. For those who are not too familiar with animal law reform, we are the first and only dedicated animal law non-profit in South Africa and one of the few on the continent. And we are a group of compassionate legal professionals guided by the principle that justice is enhanced rather than diminished when legal protection is extended to all sentient beings. Let me clarify that our work is not about prescribing dietary patterns or telling people what to eat. Rather, it's about addressing the inherent inequalities and harms embedded in industrial food systems, specifically animal production systems, or what's better known as factory farming.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamron Frank. I am a senior lecturer at the School of Public Health at the University of the Western Cape. Today, I am presenting a group of people who submitted a letter to the Human Rights Commission, and we were researchers who've been working in the food space across law, public health, nutrition, and epidemiology, and representing a number of organizations. So it was me from the School of Public Health, and then I had colleagues from CAPRISA, which is the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa, as well as colleagues from UNICEF, both South Africa and the Eastern African region. And we were quite purposeful in what we were submitting, given that the inquiry was about the right to food. We know that I think quite naturally, when you think about the right to food, you go to undernutrition, people being hungry, not having enough to eat. But when we think about the whole scope of what the right to food is, it's much bigger than that. and it also has to do with overnutrition and diseases that are linked to nutrition, like diabetes and heart disease. And so the focus of what we went for with our submission was to try and focus on what the corporate, ultra-processed, for-profit food industry is doing to make unhealthy foods so part of our everyday lives at the moment, and how that is having an impact on our right to health.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Volmink. I'm project coordinator at an organization called Masifundise Development Trust. At Masifundise, we work together with rural small-scale fishing communities. So Masifundise has been around for the past 20 years, working together with Coastal Links. Coastal Links is the national community-based organization or fisher movement that is currently operating in South Africa. So this is with all the coastal provinces around the coastline, but also some inland regions where there are fishers that fish at the rivers and dams to support themselves with food and income. And so Masifundise has been working closely with Coastal Links. It's unfortunate that today there isn't a Coastal Links member here due to time constraints. We couldn't arrange for one of them to be here, but Masifundise, as the organization, we support the movement with mobilizing, but also organizing, building for recognition of their rights, their fisher rights, their human rights, their right to food. But we also focus on strengthening their food sovereignty as the small-scale fishers and empowering them. So, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carmen Lowe. I work for an organization called Women on Farms Project. We work with women who live on commercial farms in the Western Cape and the Northern Cape, and there's a big delegation with us today. So the organization this year celebrates 30 years. So the work that we do is we work with the farm women, supporting them in their rights, their constitutional rights, and the rights derived from that, so that they can realize their right, challenge violations, and also work towards a society that's equitable and towards systemic change. They work in the food system. They are a central part of the food system. And from our knowledge, the presentation, but also what they will share, they are one of the most food insecure groups in the country, despite working in an exploitative food system.
My name is Flo. I am here on behalf of the DSTI-NRF Centre of Excellence in Food Security. We are a network of multiple different universities, all researching on food systems in different ways. So there's many different kinds of academics working with us. Some of them, like myself, more social scientists, more interested in politics and policy. But we also have people who are into food science, into crop science, and many other disciplines. So we focused in our submission on a broad overview over the South African food system and the various different areas where this food system is showing injustice and is causing harm. And as part of our submission, we try to identify a handful of key leverage points, key intervention areas where the government needs to be playing a stronger role in promoting transformation of that food system in a way that's equitable, just, and ensures adequate nutrition for all.
Allow me to proceed and ask each of you guys some questions that are going to go deeper to what you have written and submitted as a correspondence to the Human Rights Commission. My question one would go to you, Paula, and ask you to explain to the audience here that why did your organization decide to make the submission to the Human Rights Commission inquiry?
In South Africa, around 1 billion land animals are slaughtered every year. 1 billion, which is a huge amount. and trillions of aquatic animals who are killed through aquaculture or fishing. And I'm not talking about small scale, I'm talking about where it's trillions of animals, and we measure that in tonnage, not in individual species, so we don't even know how many animals are actually being killed. Second, despite the extreme scale of this harm and suffering on animals, this impacts not only animals, but humans and the environment. The idea for us in our submission was to highlight that harm is a structural feature of the current food system that we've accepted as okay.
Carmen, question 2, what are the main issues that your submission focuses on?
Our submission, as I said, women who work on farms, they're part of the food system, but they're highly exploited, and they experience seasonal hunger. And the reason being the nature of agricultural work, commercial agricultural work, it's highly seasonal. If we look outside, where this hotel is situated was a wine-producing vineyard. And there's only work for women, say from maybe September, October, until end of February, until all the grapes are harvested. And then for the rest of the year, they are unemployed without any income. So it's basically, and the same goes for fruit and other commodities in this province. So it's basically a system that creates seasonal hunger. It's also a system that exposes women, children, and those living and working on farms to highly hazardous pesticides. So it's not only about the food that we eat, but the environment that we live in, the harmful environment that's created by the food system. And those are the kinds of things that we wanted to present to the Human Rights Commission.
Let's proceed to our question number 3, and I will give it to you, Flo. What are the main recommendations or requests that you made in your submission as a center?
We have an incredibly sophisticated food system. We have high technology. We've got incredible, processes. Our standards are very high. And we also have a huge amount of laws around food, around the food security, people's entitlement to food. And at the same time, we have such a high degree of hunger, and which affects especially those who are vulnerable, women, and even more so children. And it's obvious that children's hunger is a result of the way that women are being disadvantaged in all the ways that Carmen has just explained, and many others. So that paradox for us was the kind of framing question as to, how is it possible that when we have such a sophisticated food system, we have such a lot of knowledge and technology, we have so many laws, and at the same time, even though we're exporting food, even some of the highest quality food going overseas, we're not managing to feed those who are most vulnerable. Then social protection plays a major role, but it's not enough. They need to be strengthened, and they need to be aligned with the increasing prices of food, and specifically around nutritional adequacy. Then the other structural issue is that markets are very concentrated. We have very powerful big corporations that control food processing, big corporations controlling food retail, and very big farming operations holding the land, farming things. And that means there needs to be much stronger regulation by the government of this corporate food sector.
Before that, I'm just going to give a bit of context also about why we made the submission and some of the key issues that have come up. And I think, first and foremost, the reason Coastal Links and Masifundise made this submission was to recognize the valuable or the key role that fisher people play as food producers in the South African food system. Specifically, we wanted to highlight the challenges and the violations faced by small-scale fishers when it comes to their right to food. So recognizing that fish is not only central for nutrition and for sustenance, so to feed themselves and their families, but it's tied to cultural identity, dignity, and intergenerational knowledge. And in 2012, the policy was finally put in place, a small-scale fisheries policy that recognized and gave rights to small-scale fishers. But despite this progressive policy today, they still continue to face exclusion, harassment, criminalization for just trying to access fish for food and to support themselves. Beside the challenges within the sector, there are broader challenges around ocean economy and conservation. And so what we are also seeing in South Africa is this push toward the blue economy. And this is basically how we use our ocean space to grow our economy in the country. And so this is a lot where we also see more investment, foreign investment for commercial fisheries. There's aquaculture that was also spoken about. There's also conservation, tourism, maritime, so all these different industries. But what we are seeing is that this, instead of ensuring that fisher people are included and their spaces are, allocated for them, we are seeing them slowly being pushed out and out and out of these spaces, and more is given to profit making instead of valuing those who actually depend on the resource for their livelihood. So I think for us, it's that, the state should never be or get in the way of people who are able to actually go and work and go and get food for themselves. They're not asking for a handout. They're not asking government to sort. They can go themselves to the sea. They can go. So government shouldn't prevent that and create so much barriers to access for them to access their food and be able to provide for themselves. Yeah.
There is a lot of concern that without departments working together, we're not going to make much progress. And I think something like the health promotion levy, the sugary beverage tax, is a good example to see where we saw the Treasury implementing this tax, and the Department of Health was supportive of it because we know that consuming too much sugar is bad for our health, but we've seen opposition from the Department of Agriculture, who are more focused on the farmers growing sugarcane. And so there's the departments are not working together, and there's a very, very siloed approach that makes it very difficult to make progress.
I think Flo also mentioned the agroecological shifts needed, and just to build on that, so we are also saying there needs to be a just transition to ethical and sustainable food system reform. Like we've heard, we need to invest in people on the ground who already have the knowledge, the indigenous systems, the resources, the communities, the infrastructure. We need to give support into fresh produce markets, these alternatives that we are aware of but can't really do much about. Same with, I think, land reform. We didn't touch on that too much, but again, you can't talk about food system reform without talking about land reform. And then finally, just to embed, we've heard about food sovereignty, being able to sustain yourself in the way that you see fit. Again, being able to decide for yourself what you're eating, why you're eating it, the type of food that was made, where it came from. That at the end of the day, I think, is what food justice really means.
It's a food system that creates hunger and perpetuates inequalities that started during colonial times when indigenous people were dispossessed of their land. And the issue of land, 72% of agricultural land still remains in the hands of white commercial farmers, making women and workers dependent on these landowners for their very livelihoods and where they live. So part of the solution should be, the transformative agrarian transformation should be also the issue of land transformation and land reform. It is a constitutional stipulation, a constitutional right, but more than 30 years into our democracy, we still see that the very people who work the land for generations from slave times still don't have land and are still suffering because of that. So we're saying that there should be feminist reparation because women from colonial times have suffered, and today the issue of hunger is still feminized because it's women that are responsible for the food. You can ask any of the women here in this room today, if there's no food, how does that make them feel? They feel guilty, they feel responsible, they feel it as if it's their problem, but it's actually a systems problem. And it's a lot of repair work, transformative work that's needed to rid women of that guilt and trauma of hunger and poverty. So part of feminist reparation, we say there should be a wealth tax. And that wealth tax should be used, one, to drive the land reform program, to ensure that those who've been working the land, especially women, that they have access to land. Part of that money should also be used for a universal income support grant.
But I think what has really come out here and on the panel and in this room is the importance of alliance building within our movements, because I think it was said by everybody here, we see a lot of similarities in what is happening, even if we come from different sectors. We're seeing this corporate capture of the food system and the importance of challenging that. So I think that is one key takeaway that I think has come out of this. Yeah, thank you.
I would like to hand over to the floor for questions.
Good day to everyone in the house. I'm Marissa Dirks. I'm from Avon Park, Worcester, and activist for women on farms. Last year, we were in Joburg, we speak to the commissioners. And even we have this discussion before, and even today, have a round table again. My question is, when will there be action taking? Because it just can't, every time sitting round table. We have a constitution. And the constitution said that we have a right to nutritious food. So, what did the Constitution mean to our South Africans if they didn't put things in place for us? So I think there must be action.
There comes a time where you just have to organize and do something about it. And that's, I think, the space that UAH takes up, Wallace, because the food advocacy movement has been very laid back. There have not been thousands of people protesting about all the issues that we're all aware of. We talk about it nicely, and we have conferences, and we have roundtables like you mentioned, and then it's difficult because what happens after that? But if we're pointing fingers at the next person saying you should be doing something, then we should say the same thing to ourselves. So I think that's what I would say, and again, just thank you for the space.
We've got 1 minute to share amongst the three of us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the questions. And I think maybe just to answer on the last question about taking action. And I think what we could say to that is, action should be taken together. And that also, we must also look at different ways of taking action and not just, for example, in our experience, we know we go towards the legal route and trying to get, we think that is where the higher powers, that is where we need to focus. But I think equally as important is building power from the ground up and building on grassroots level that power together, because sometimes you get to that legal route, it's a judgment that's given, but it's still the different actors involved don't take forward what was actually set down by our legal systems. So there needs to be other ways we build around that, and also to share our alternatives rooted in food sovereignty, agroecology. So also we have the issue, and what we need to highlight is what do we want to see as the movements together.
I just want to make a quick comment, 1 second. Young people, I think it is your full responsibility to take action as from today. Full responsibility of how do you get involved in this movement? How do you support the cries that you have heard today? How do you invite all these organizations to your communities to inform you, give you information of how does this come together? How does it connect with each kind of a point, if I can put it that way? And make sure when we are gathered in these spaces like this today, we know exactly where we are heading. And then in that way, we're going to head with one vision and one voice. Lastly, we've got the government that does not implement its constitution. Although it's so much protected, they are not even scared of the disgrace of not taking note or acknowledging or being accountable for Section 27 and Section 28. that makes me not to sit when I'm speaking about this because of the cries that I had today. So young people, I give this to you today. And thank you very much for everybody who have kind of give us their time today. Please, the movement is for everybody. Go talk about it in your community. Go make sure that everybody who's here has come to Masiphumelele, has come to Capricorn, has come to Mitchell's Plain, has come to all the communities to talk about what they are talking today so that you can exactly know what we are debating to and then taking it forward. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy further your afternoon. Thank you to my panelists as well.